and today I'm going to show you how to watercolor some oranges. California has a long history of growing oranges. I mean, we do live in Orange County, so I'm going to show you some different techniques of how to draw them. So the materials we're going to use today is our watercolor paper, watercolors. They can be any type. You can also use old watercolors. So like this is a very old set. Not even that tidy, but still works awesome. One of my favorite kits. Water, paper towels, tape. This is a graphite stick. It's the same stuff that's inside a regular pencil, but you can just use a regular pencil. You don't need this, but it's very helpful. Then you're going to need a watercolor brush. The one that comes in the kit is usually okay, but sometimes I like to use a nicer brush when I'm painting, just so I can get fine details and everything. Then I also have a kneaded eraser. So it's almost like a putty, and it self-cleans itself. It's good for doing gentle erasing. And then I also have a colored pencil for doing transferring, and I'll show you how we use that later. You'll also notice that with watercolor paper, it's a little bit thicker than regular paper. When you get regular paper wet, it gets kind of wavy. So to cut down on that, the thicker paper will actually stay flat even after it gets wet. So today we're going to be doing some oranges, some citrus. So after all, we do live in Orange County, and California has a long history with citrus and orange fields and all of that. So this is just part of what we're going to be working on today. I'm going to show you how to do a transfer and how to fill these in, so don't be overwhelmed. We're going to be using an image just for inspiration. So I have this photo of just some oranges by a pool at a friend's house. And so this was a painting that I did yesterday off it. But I didn't just do it, perfect. There's always tricks to getting to finish. I used to get really frustrated every time I'd make a mistake, and then I wouldn't want to paint anymore. So when you learn a few tricks, they're going to make it easier for you to paint, and it's going to be less frustrating. So first, what I like to do is start off with a simple drawing. So it's just simple line drawing, you know, nothing fancy or anything, just the main outline. And after I did the drawing, I actually copied it because I wanted to keep my drawing, because for the next step, it's going to get a little bit destroyed. So here's our drawing. So with keeping this in mind, this is where the graphite stick's going to be very useful. I'm going to rub the back of my printout, because every time you do a drawing on watercolor paper, when you erase, if you try doing painting on top of it, it actually messes up the paper or makes indents, and it makes it harder to paint. So if you make your drawing on a separate piece of paper and do it this way, it'll keep your paper tidier and it'll work better. So I just have it rubbed on there good. I'll just put it on the paper wherever I want, and that's where I'll use the tape. And you can use a regular pencil. I like to use a colored pencil when I do this step, because what we're going to be doing is tracing over the drawing, pressing pretty hard. And I use the colored pencil because if it's a complicated drawing, or I get up or I'm distracted by something, when I come back to it, I'll know where I left off. Where if I use a regular pencil, it's harder to see. So what I'm doing is I'm pressing hard, and as I go, when you flip up, you'll see that your lines that you're pressing there will go to your paper. And so that will be a useful guideline for when you're painting. So this will take a little while. So like a regular cooking show, I have come prepared. So through the magic of television, I have transferred all this using my red colored pencil. So when I flip it up, there's my drawing. So I can take the tape off. And you'll see that because when I was tracing, I had my hand down, and so it made little smudges. So that's where the kneaded eraser comes in handy, because I can just go in there and gently erase some of the smudges that happened. And if you do a transfer and it's too dark, like the lines are really dark, because you kind of want something more like this that's a little bit, you know, not as coloring booky, you know. You can use this, actually flatten it out into a pancake shape and then press it down. And when you lift it off, it won't erase the line, but it will definitely lighten it without smearing it. So very useful tool. So next, what I like to do, just to make a tidy drawing again, is put tape around the edge. It can be any width of tape. And this is what's going to give you that nice squared off look that looks like you were being so careful when you laid out your drawing. So I'm just going to make almost like a little window. So the type of tape that I'm using is artist tape. So it goes on and it's not super sticky, so that when you take it off again, it won't peel up the paper. Another type of tape that works really well is blue tape. So like if you have any blue tape in your house, that is a-okay. If you don't, and you only have like masking tape, so that's one, like this is white color, but they also have one that's kind of more like this color, the tan color. You can use it, but it's too sticky. So before you use it, you take off the piece of tape. I'll just show you with one of these. Take off the piece of tape, and then either on your pants or any other piece of fabric, just kind of stick it a couple times, and that'll get a little bit of fuzz from whatever you're sticking it to on here, so then you can use it on your paper without it damaging your paper. So, you know, when that's all you got to make it work. Next, what we're going to do is, instead of just putting paint straight on it, we're actually just going to get water on our brush, and wherever the background is, I'm just going to get the paper wet. So there's kind of a weird balance. Too much water and the paper might wrinkle a lot. Too little water, when you put on the paint, it'll look streaky. You see I'm picking around the leaves. I'm trying not to get water into the leaves, but if it happens, it happens, and the leaves are dark, so at least it'll be easy to fix. So anywhere there's background. And now I'm going to get some blue, because we can see from the reference photo that there is water. And I like a turquoisey blue, so this is straight blue, but to make a nice turquoise, you can actually add green to it. More water because I don't want it super dark. And so now that this is kind of puddly and wet, we'll just start putting in, and we don't have to worry about brush strokes, because as the paint dries, it'll flatten out and even itself out. So again, picking around those leaves. I'm just going to go over this leaf because it's a dark leaf, so I can cover it up easy. Need more paint, ran out. When you run out of paint, it's a good idea. Like you see how I did this whole section, so it'll all be even. So I'll do this whole section all at once. Here, I got over into the orange a little bit, so I'm going to use my little paper towel to tidy up that line. So when the paint's wet, paper towels are awesome erasers. All right, so normally I would wait for this all to dry, so that way I don't get things contaminated, but I think it'll be pretty safe to work on some of the oranges if I stay away from the edges. So I'm just gonna get some orange on my brush, and this, you wanna kind of think of it as like a crescent moon. So here's my little crescent moon, because this will be the light is coming from this direction. And you can see from the photo that this leaf is casting a shadow, but we'll worry about that after this part. So I'm going to try and stay away from this edge because I don't want that blue creeping in too much. It's shadow, so if a little bit of blue comes in, it's okay. But until that blue dries, I don't want too much coming in. So then with my brush clean and with a little bit of water, I'm gonna go on the side here, just to soften that edge. And we'll do the same for the other oranges. So, crescent moon. This one has like a funny little shadow, so we'll go out and then fill that in. This orange is all dark, so I guess we could, so I'll just fill in all the oranges. Okay, now while that's drying, now I'm going to do some of the leaves. So these are pretty dark green leaves. We get some yellow. And I already have some of this turquoise left over, so I'm just gonna borrow it, and it will make a nice green with some yellow. With watercolor, you always want to work light to dark. And I'm not really caring about if the leaves blend into each other or not, because in the photo they do, so. So right now it looks very blobby, but again, a lot of art starts out that way. Now I'm going to do the branch, and the branch is pretty dark, but not pure black, so I'm just going to mix some brown and blue to make a nice gray. Make some darker green for those leaves while those oranges are still drying. The darkest leaves. And I'm looking more at the shapes that are happening in the leaves than thinking of it as I am painting a leaf, because the abstract-y shapes will actually make it look more real. So it's a good idea to let things dry in between coats. So here I have some bleeding, but that's okay because it's actually going to, I can crispen up the lines as I go. And something that can speed up the drying time is a handy dandy hairdryer. It just happens to be the only reason I own one, is to make my paintings dry faster. So used this a little bit on the painting so that we could get a little bit further. All right, so now that it's dry, we can start going back in and adding some more crispies. So like here where the blue blended in, we're gonna just go in and tidy it up. Then with a cleaner brush, so I just cleaned it, dried it off a little, I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow and only a little bit of orange. And fill in the empty spots on these oranges. Now we're going to tidy up the leaves. And since this leaf bled over, we're just gonna add more leaves right there. Happy little accident. And for the lighter part of the leaves, I'm gonna add a little more yellow. You can kind of blend stuff too. So now I'm still tidying up the leaves and putting in some extra darkness just to add contrast, just filling in the white spaces. But it's okay to leave some white. That'll kind of leave a sparkle. So here's the little darkness between those two oranges. Adding a little bit more darkness. Go up here and darken that top orange because it's pretty dark, so I'm going to add some brown. Because even though it's an orange, it's not orange everywhere. Brown is just dark orange. Adding in some more brown. You don't want to cover up all your orange, just some of it. Add some more darks on the branch. And maybe I'll add some little stripes for the leaves, for the veins. Don't want to add them everywhere, otherwise they'll look like they're pasted on. So just add them in a few places. So now we're starting to look like oranges. We can go back in and lighten some areas. Like I might decide that that leaf needs to be a little bit lighter. So I'm going in with just a little bit of water on my brush and kind of scrubbing the paper. Then I'll go in with a paper towel, and when I wipe it away, it's like erasing paint. Tidy up the edge, add a little more just random shapes. Maybe go back in and soften a few edges. But otherwise, this is a good base for a beginning of a painting. You can go back in with watercolor pencils. You can do many, many layers. So like this one that I did was many, many layers that I did, but this is more like the undercoat. So this is a great start to a painting for me. I love working on things for very long. So like this painting that I showed you in the beginning, I spent 2 hours on. So I let this dry, went back in, and did a lot more detail, a lot more layers. So this is probably about 4 or 5 layers. So this is just a good jumping off point because not everybody wants to work on a painting as long as I do. But just to show you the trick with the tape real quick before we finish. So the tape we put on in the beginning, when you peel it off, it leaves a nice, clean, crispy line, which makes your picture look a lot better, like you were being really careful the whole time. So there you have oranges.